Hello there, lovely people, it's Alex from Nintendo Life here, and today I'm going to be talking to you all about Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle. Yes, I managed to get my hands on this game, and I managed to play a good number of hours of it, and I thought I'd tell you what I think of the thing. And, yeah, that's pretty much it. It's going to be unscripted, it's going to be loose and wobbly, and it's going to be a lot of fun, and it's going to come right from here. Nintendo Life. Okay, so first of all, I want to talk about the mechanics of the game. Now, you probably know that there are various new elements in this thing, things like the team jumping, where you point one of your characters towards another one of your characters, and then they can leap off that character and go even further than they would be able to before, which is very, very useful for getting around and getting into areas that you couldn't do, obviously, and even getting on, going over gaps and getting up into high areas that otherwise you would not be able to reach. There's also the dash mechanic, which is basically where you can, during your movement phase, you can rush into enemies and then go anywhere else during that movement phase and deal damage to them, which is wonderful, and there's no penalty to that at all. You can dash into an enemy and then go back to exactly where you were before if you wanted, and then take a pot shot at them and kill them, maybe. I don't know, it depends how much health they've got left. And then, as I discovered as I played more and more, using the skill trees and things like that, that gets extrapolated even further, and you can do things like you can dash into multiple enemies during just one movement phase. I don't think you can dash into the same enemy multiple times, because that would probably be a little bit overpowered, but it's still good. You can sort of, dash into an enemy, dash into another enemy, dash into another enemy, and then just go back to where you were, or go anywhere else within your movement phase. There is no penalty for it whatsoever, unless the enemy has, I can't remember, it's like Hero Vision or something like that. It is called basically Overwatch, not the game, the thing that happens in games like XCOM, where enemies are sort of poised and waiting, and if they see movement, they'll, not even in their turn, they'll jump out and they'll shoot at the enemy and deal damage, and it's very spicy indeed. And then the team jumping gets taken even further with characters like Mario, who can jump off an enemy, jump into the air and then land on an enemy and then deal additional damage. And so, you could in theory with Mario dash into an enemy, dash into another enemy, jump off of one of your teammates, land on, I think you can land on the same enemy that you hit with a dash previously, but I'm not entirely certain about that. Basically, the movement phase is just as important as the attack phase, and you can do a lot of damage in it, and it's very, very exciting. Also, there are different things like Peach. If she uses her jump thing, as in she's the one actually doing the jumping, when she lands, poof, big explosion, everyone around her gets healed. Well, I mean, I say explosion, it's not really an explosion, but like an area of effect thing, and it doesn't heal enemies. I was very pleased to know that. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say, wow, these are brand new ideas that have never been done in a turn-based strategy before. I'm sure a lot of them have. For example, things like the jumping mechanic is something that's very prominent in Disgaea. Not that I've played a lot of it, but what I have played, the jumping plays a very big role. But nevertheless, it does, it's really encouraging to see that the movement phase is really important, and you've really got to think about everything you can do and everything the enemy can do, because they can do all this stuff as well. I'm not sure about the hopping onto you thing, but I know that they can definitely dash into you, and they can dash into multiple enemies as well, depending on the enemy that you're fighting, and it can get very scary very, very quickly. It's a very, very interesting way of doing things, because as I said before, these things, have been done in the past. I'm not sure about the dashing thing, but there's always been a penalty for it, whilst in this instance there really isn't, but the enemy can do exactly the same thing. So whilst you're looking at who you can attack, you've also got to remember that when the enemy's turn comes around, they can do the same thing to you. So you've got to use your noggin. There's a lot of noggin usage in this game. A lot of noggin usage. While I'm on the subject of noggin usage, the levels that I played one level early in the game, and it was pretty straightforward, fairly easy. I didn't really have much of difficulty with it at all. I have played a number of turn-based strategies in the past, things like XCOM and stuff like that. I've played the crap out of XCOM. I love that thing. And so it wasn't really a challenge for me. I got through all the rounds with perfect, which basically means all your characters get to the end without being damaged. Well, no, sorry, not without being damaged, without being taken out. You can take damage and still get a perfect, which is nice. So I didn't have much of an issue with that side of things, but then the lovely people who were there sort of taking us through the game said, okay, if, you know, sort of when you've done that level, if you can stop, and they're going to take us through a tutorial, and they took us through some of the various other mechanics that you unlock later in the game, things like jumping on the enemies and various other things that have an effect, various different abilities you can use as well, like there's a magnet dance or something which draws enemies towards you, which sounds like a terrible idea, but if you're deep in enemy territory, or if they're, you know, sort of long range, better a long range, and you want to get up close, you can drag them closer into you and, you know, then get another character to go in and take them out, you know. So there's loads of really interesting different things. They've got a lot of creativity going on in there. And yeah, then they actually took us to about, I can't remember whether it was 40 or 60% of the way into the game. I have a feeling it was 60% of the way into the game. And, you know, sort of the first mission I did in that, I got my ass absolutely handed to me, and no mistake. The point of the level is I just had to get one of my party members to one side of the arena, if you like, and it was obviously the opposite side to where I was. If it was right next to me, it would be very easy, but it wasn't, because good God, I mean, they introduced so many new mechanics all at once, which I can understand them doing that, because I think a lot of people got the idea that this game was going to be very easy. And I can very much say that it is not. I can say that with absolute certainty that this is going to be a tough game. And there is an easy mode, actually, which you can just select at the start of every round that you do. Not every round, I should say, every battle that you take part in, rather than every round, because that would be ridiculous. I didn't actually use the easy mode because I just didn't want to touch that, but I did talk to some people about, you know, sort of what it does and things like that. And they basically said that it heals any of your teammates that are damaged from the previous battle that you may have, you know, experienced in the same world, because that happens a lot, you know, sort of in a world or a level, if you like. You have multiple battles and there's sort of movement and exploration between them. And so if you take damage in the first one, you'll have that damage in the second one as well, which is interesting to note. So it basically heals all that, and I think it increases your health a bit. I don't know if the camera can out then, so I'm going to say this as a segue, in case it did. But yeah, apart from that, it's exactly the same as just the normal mode. So for it being an easy mode, it's not doing that much to make things easier for you. It certainly takes the edge off. But even so, you know, I think younger players are probably going to have to rely on that quite a lot. And even then, they're probably going to have a difficulty, to be honest, because this game is, it's tough. Have I said that yet? This game is tough. Anyway, back to the level in question. There are all these boos. If you walked near them, then they sort of attached themselves to you, and then the next turn, they picked you up and put you back pretty much at the start, and it was honestly hell. But I did do it. I did complete that level, and it was very, very satisfying when I did. And I think I managed to get a perfect on it in the end, just by changing up what characters I was using, and indeed just what I was doing. So the game is definitely tough, but there's more to this game than just gameplay and mechanics and things like that, and the game being tough, because in fact, no, overall, yeah, I'm going to talk overall. I think when it comes to the mechanics and the difficulty and just the way that the game is structured from a sort of a mechanical point of view, I'm really impressed, because I think it's safe to say when we first heard about a Mario and Rabbids crossover that could be a turn-based strategy game, I'm pretty sure most people were just like, but it is good, it's really good. I was so pleased, really, because I don't want a game to fail. I don't want a game to inherently be bad. I want every game to be good. They're not always going to be good, but, you know, sort of what's the point in wanting a game to be bad? So I was very pleased in that regard, and I am really looking forward to it. I'm a little bit concerned about the length of the game. I'm not sure how long it's going to be, or, you know, sort of, and in terms of replayability, things like that, but who knows? I don't know, because I haven't played the full thing yet. But another very important thing with this game is the presentation. Now, you've probably seen screenshots and you've probably seen video footage and stuff like that, and, you know, as is the case, you're probably seeing some during this video as well. I've got loads of capture, so I might as well use it. There's a lot to be said for a game's visuals when it gets uploaded to YouTube, because it just degrades things so much. And, you know, what you see, I mean, I'm sure if you played Splatoon 2 is a perfect example. All that color going on the screen, YouTube likes to compress the hell out of that to make it as small as possible, to make it easy to stream. Fine, but it doesn't actually do the real game's, you know, graphics justice. And it's the same with this game, but there are still some issues with the graphics. I do overall like them, but I do want to talk about the bad things first. I think the best way to describe the graphics are ambitious. I mean, they're very ambitious for the Switch. I mean, it does look nice, but they are trying to put too much onto the device, I think. I mean, maybe Nintendo could make it work because they're very, very clever and they understand how the Switch works on a very, very, sort of detailed level. But it does chug along a bit. It's 30 frames a second, and, there's a draw distance issues. I mean, everything is, sort of drawn, as it were. But, backgrounds, things in the distance start to look very soft. And even things in the foreground, to be honest, look quite soft. I mean, it's not a big deal. It's certainly not a deal breaker. But, there is so much going on in the game, and that is so much to its credit, because the backgrounds are gorgeous, and if it could render them properly, they would be even more gorgeous. And it is a little bit stuttery in terms of frame rate, but that's not really a big deal because, it's a turn-based strategy game. You're not looking for reaction times or anything like that, so it doesn't affect gameplay. It's a shame that it couldn't be a little bit better, but it's not a deal breaker. But as I said, the environments are just to die for. There is so much going on. They've really pushed a huge amount of polygons in. The detail, the colors, everything's popping out of everywhere. And one of my favorite things is the fact that the environment reacts to the music in real time. So you'll see things like flowers behaving like trumpets and going like burp, 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 to Grant Kirkhope's wonderful track, or I could even say Grant Kirkhope because that's his real name. The music as well is just wonderful. I mean, it screams Grant Kirkhope. It feels very much like a banjo game or something like that, but at the same time there's certain little sort of ditties and things thrown in from classic Mario games, so it gives it a really sort of lovely Mario underlining. It's Grant Kirkhope underlined by Nintendo. I also got a chance to play the co-op, which is a thing. I'm not sure whether they've announced it yet or not, but there is a co-op mode, and it's good. It's basically just a multiplayer mode where you pick 2 characters each, and you go up against a load of enemy Rabbids, and there are various stages and things like that. And you can choose normal or hard, and I always chose hard, and hard is hard. But the only thing that... it's a weird thing. The co-op uses the split, sort of the individual Joy-Cons on their side like that, which makes sense. But because it's all turn-based and everything like that, it's not split screen, it's all on one screen, and only one of you has control at any one point. So why do you need 2 controllers? I mean, it's just like playing, if you play Worms. I love Worms, why isn't that on the Switch? Team 17, get to it. Using multiple controllers can be convenient, but it's certainly not a necessity, and the fact that the controls are kind of stripped back because of the single Joy-Con limitations, I mean, you can still do everything, but for things like when you're cycling through your abilities, you can go left and right, usually. Using the Pro Controller or using the Joy-Cons, no problem. With the single Joy-Con, you sort of cycle through and then go back on yourself, which is fine, it works, but, it's not needed. You don't need 2 controllers, so why offer it? I mean, maybe if you had 2 full controllers, it would be better. But it feels like they're doing the whole sort of individual Joy-Con thing just to show that they can do the individual Joy-Con thing. And it doesn't add anything at all. But the actual gameplay of the co-op is wonderful. It's really nice to be able to have that sort of cooperation between 2 people and saying, oh, if you take them there, then I'll keep this guy here, and you can jump up and go over there, and then you can get your shotgun out with Peach. Peach has a shotgun. It's honestly brilliant. And just go, pow, and just take out all the enemies in one shot. It doesn't always happen, but you can live in hope. It does work really, really well. The only weird thing is this, individual Joy-Con thing. There's no need to do that. You can just have one controller that you pass back and forth. And even then, it sort of feels almost like, why don't you just play the single player, I mean, yeah, it's different, different levels and stuff like that, which is good, different enemies and all that good stuff. But there's no actual sort of multiplayer involved. You're taking turns. It would be good for doing it over the internet and things like that, but even so, you could theoretically play the single player totally co-op as well. You just pass the controller back and forth. It's just sort of, do you know what I mean? It's just sort of missing something. But honestly, overall, Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle is, honestly, it's looking really, really good, and I was very, very worried, to say the least. Even after all the reveals and everything, I thought, well, is it going to be sort of like a stilted sort of kiddies first turn-based strategy kind of thing, but it's not. If anything, I'd argue, given the sort of the aesthetic and the fact that it is going to appeal to children, it's probably a little bit too hard. But even so, for me personally, that's a great thing. I love a challenge, and this is looking really, really promising. I cannot wait to play more of it, and I hope you liked this video. We're going to have loads more Mario and Rabbids coverage very, very soon, and probably even at the moment, if I can find the time, I'll have some gameplay and stuff go up. Maybe even a little thing looking at the environments. I don't know yet, but we'll probably have a playlist. Click that card to check it out. It's going to be good. It's going to be great. Like this game, hopefully. It's looking good. It's looking great. But you don't know what's going to happen, do you? Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, then why don't you slide tackle that subscribe button and then run back to exactly where you were and then shoot it with a big, characterful, colourful gun. And be sure to check out NintendoLife.com for all sorts of lovely Nintendo-related content. Thank you again for watching. Bye-bye. A lot of noggin usage. That's one for the outtakes.